Welcome to All Things Chiropractic.
Well, welcome to another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
Dr. Mark Davini.
And today we're going to be talking about hormesis.
More or less.
Now, we're not talking about a new category of beetle or a classification of a bug, hormesis. It's not a Harry Potter spell or a character, hormesis.
I thought it was something to do with spam.
Spam, yeah. Well, if you're talking about food, it doesn't sound appetizing.
Not at all, but neither does spam. So.
Yeah. Did you know Hawaii is like the biggest consumer of spam of all our states?
I know.
Yeah, that's funny.
Spam.
We're already getting off topic. Okay, so what is hormesis, Doc?
You know, it was when first exposed to this, it was just an interesting discussion. We had brought it up in our X-ray discussion about hormesis, which we'll mention again in just a little bit. But when you look at what hormesis is, it's kind of a concept that a low-dose stressor or a sub-threshold stressor that normally might be considered harmful may actually be beneficial.
So, like, when you say stressor, I mean, you talking about like when I get stressed out because I'm meeting a deadline or I have to be in front of you somewhere or... Oh, sorry. Was it my outside voice?
And he stared right at me when he said that too. You know, it could be anything that puts the body in distress. So, and the question comes out to be, how far does that go? So, for example, and we used it before, we'll use it again, radiation. Obviously, you can have so much radiation that it will cause immediate death. You can have a lot of radiation that might cause immediate symptoms and then eventual death. And then you have something like a sunburn, which is a small amount of radiation, but you're not going to die from it most likely. So anything that stresses the body.
Where's the dose that turns me into a superhero? That's what I'm looking for.
You need a spider to be irradiated.
Or like the Hulk, right? Gamma rays, right? I was waiting for that.
I know.
So you're saying that if I eat a whole blueberry pie and that stresses my body out, I'm doing something good for myself? Excellent.
Yeah. Okay, let's back that one up.
Okay. I misunderstood. I'm so sorry.
Okay, that explains
a lot. Put the fork down, people.
Yeah. That explains a lot. Okay. So, and it really is, it's like a concept that maybe these things that we normally would consider to be bad in small enough doses are good. So let's say diet. If you were to not eat for a very long time, you're going to die. But if you didn't eat for, say, a mildly extended period of time, putting the body in a little bit of a starvation mode, stressing it out a bit, forcing it to go scavenging for all its nutrients with what's left in the body, they're saying that's a good thing.
I've heard that hypocaloric diets are sort of like this anti-aging almost process because your cells have to renew and it helps slow down the metabolism, slow down things. I don't know if all that's true, and I have yet to try that for some reason.
Well, it's right. It's one of the things that fall under the category of hormesis.
Oh.
I mean, you can do it through diet. You can do it through exercise. You can do it through sleep or lack thereof. I mean, there are a number of ways in which you can stress the body. And by stressing the body, you're forcing it to activate a repair mechanism. And that repair mechanism is what the body needs to live longer. It needs to be able to have an active and dynamic repairing mechanism to basically live a long time. So what they're saying is that if you were to put the body in some level of stress, forcing the body to respond to that lack, whatever that lack might be, that's a good thing because now the body is active and dynamic. If you keep giving it everything it needs, every minute it needs it, and it never has to work at it, so to speak, Can think of so many things in life that are like
I
that. And I
am
saw your
keeping my
face.
mouth
Yeah,
shut.
keeping your mouth shut on that one, right? That the body gets everything it wants whenever it wants it. And then all of a sudden it goes away. The body doesn't know how to find these
It
things.
can't cope
Can't cope.
because it's been, basically pampered its whole life. The body can't cope.
Right. It's the body feels entitled to everything.
So bringing it back into sort of the chiropractic setting.
Oh, we weren't doing that? Okay.
No. Like when somebody says, well, I don't want x-rays because I don't want the radiation. Now you're saying there's a possibility that it's not all a downside to the body if it gets exposed to that small amount.
Well, it's very interesting when you think about this, that in the world of hormesis and in the world of x-ray, you go, oh my God, could there be, those things don't make sense. One is a good thing and the other one is supposed to be a bad thing. But they've done some interesting studies, and they've actually done studies on the atomic bomb survivors from the Hiroshima and Nagasaki days, right? And now obviously there's tiers of people that live and died through that process. Obviously the ones who were at ground zero were immediately killed and vaporized, for that matter. And then there were circles and tiers that kept getting farther and farther away from ground zero. And they discovered that there was a certain point where people were far enough away from ground zero that they didn't die. And they didn't die from we'll say radiation type symptoms or poisoning that some of the closer people had. And actually they discovered that these people lived longer. That those people that had low doses of radiation actually lived longer. In Taiwan, they had a building that was inadvertently constructed out of recycled materials that were irradiated. So the whole building gave off low levels of radiation.
That heating bill must have been pretty low.
Absolutely. Right. The heating bill was good. And so was the electric bill. They didn't need as many lights.
Yeah.
So, and they found out that these people also lived longer. So what's going on here? We're stressing the body that's just examples of radiation. So to get back to your question about, are you doing something to your patients when you give them x-rays that we were all raised to think was not a good thing, but that the benefit definitely far outweighed the risk. Now we're finding out that not only did the benefit outweigh the risk then, it's actually reached a point where the risk itself is way less than what we were thinking.
And today's x-ray equipment, it's a lot better than it used to be. I mean, the amount of radiation is statistically pretty insignificant overall, right?
Absolutely. And let's get back to some of the discussion points about what hormesis is really all about. At least in today's world where the discussion keeps going, it's living longer. That they're actually saying this is a method of longevity.
Now, don't go stick your body in front of an x-ray tube.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
No. But here's some examples of everyday things that we could do. We could do oxygen-deprived exercise. So, and that sounds terrible, but here's a simple example.
That's just me walking.
That's, waking up in the morning. Right? So we have...
So sleep apnea is actually a good thing? Because my life insurance said it wasn't.
Yeah, you're going to live longer if you don't breathe, But say you went out for a walk, and after you kind of have your rhythm, you pick a point and you go, once I hit that point there, I'm going to hold my breath and continue walking for as long as I can. Count the steps. And then once you have to exhale and stop breathing again, have that return to normal. And you train that way with this oxygen-deprived exercise. You'll find that your steps get longer and longer and longer because you're training your body to live on less oxygen.
That's like those deep diver people in wherever, island, villages and stuff that they can dive for like 5 minutes or something. It's like...
My father was a champion scuba diver, and his oxygen tank lasted 50% more than anybody else's because he spent all that time training himself to breathe less.
Yeah.
You can do it. So that's just one thing. That's just exercise, any way that you force your body to need the oxygen, but you don't give it to it readily.
Tell me if I'm wrong about this, but not during the Chernobyl accident, but years later in that area, they found that the wildlife, the botanicals, the mammals, they were actually thriving.
Oh, yeah. You had like 12-foot broccoli,
Yeah. Feed the world with one Chernobyl broccoli.
Yeah. Isn't this what the movie Godzilla is all about?
Yeah, but
but it's true.
Yeah.
No, it is true that wildlife thrived, vegetation thrived. We're talking about sub-threshold levels of stressors. Remember that. We're not saying, let's burn the people out, give them a sunburn with your X-ray machine. But yes, there's definitely the whole theory, the whole concept is this sub-threshold level, low level of stressors.
Not stressors.
Yeah. Putting the body in a place where it has to respond. Like fasting. Intermittent fasting is an example of a diet form of hormesis, where you just don't give your body everything it needs every minute of the day. You force, like I said, you force it to go look for food. So there are those people that might have their dinner at night and not really eat anything until lunch the next day. And then even then it's something light and easy. And
see, I have half that battle down.
Yeah.
I won't eat until dinner, but then
you don't stop.
I don't stop until I go to bed.
Yeah. That's not intermittent fasting. That's just called, like
porking out, basically.
Basically. You're supposed
What's wrong with me?
You're supposed to stop.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, I heard stressors. I'm trying to stress out my stomach, apparently. Yeah. I don't know.
What another example of hormesis is this whole new trend of cold plunging.
I love that. My wife would never. She's freezing when it's 73 degrees in the house.
Right.
She would never.
Never. Yeah. Well, no, but cold plunging is another form of hormesis where, you put yourself in ice baths or you use the nitrogen tanks or whatever. And I'll tell you, you've ever put yourself in one of them, you come out.
I saw you crawling one at a Parker seminar once, right? The cryo chambers.
The cryo chamber.
And they're you can't spend more than 30 seconds there or something.
Oh my God. It was unbelievable. Yeah. But when you came out, you felt refreshed and the body, and they do it for other reasons too. They claim it's anti-inflammatory and all that. But we're just talking about hormesis and how that helps to improve your circulation by forcing your body to bring back circulation to areas that you have consciously taken away.
So from a biological standpoint, I know that if you were to take a shower, hint, Mark, every day. And I don't know how that went there, but it was funny.
I'm going through hormesis.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Did you know that there was a guy, I can't believe the internet, but there was a guy that didn't take a shower like his whole life. And he was, he was in his deep 70s, 80s, 90s. And then he took a shower and he dropped dead the next week. I was like, what?
That's the opposite of hormesis.
Yeah, right.
Right? Yeah.
It works for one person.
Yeah, that'll teach you to take a 125-degree shower.
Yeah. But they say if you're taking a shower and you stop and you let the last few minutes as much as you can bear be cold, it activates the mitochondria in your body to
absolutely
create more fuel and more, vibrance.
Think about people that have lived very long lives.
I'm looking at one.
Very, very long lives. But yet they seem to have done everything wrong in their life. Or you go, boy, that person doesn't eat anything but soup.
Right. Right. Drinks like a fish. Right?
Drinks like a fish. They only eat soup or whatever. Yeah. And you realize that somewhere in this whole concept of hormesis, there has to be some validity to it. And because there are people that live a long time that, we'll say, semi-abuse their lifestyles. Paul.
Right. I was just thinking, how do I...
Paul's going to live to be about 110.
Yeah. How do my vices translate into hormesis, or at least in my brain, so I could do that?
Yeah. No, Paul's going to live to about 110.
Yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't that... I don't know if that'd be nice or not. But...
Right. Yes. Oh.
Yeah. So when we're talking about hormesis, in all seriousness, we're not talking about deliberately putting yourself or your patients in harm's way, but we are saying, no, I have a question for you. This concept to me was pretty radically new. Not all of the things we talked about, but certainly the radiation part of it at a low level. What's it like out there in the medical community about this thought?
Well, there's been tremendous resistance to this concept, especially when it comes to radiation itself, because let's face it, the whole industry is based upon the premise that antioxidants are, when you have oxidation in your system, if you have free radicals in a sense, that's the anti-aging secret. Let's get rid of those free radicals. Trouble is they've done the studies where they've done all this free radical elimination types of procedures, and they found out that these people didn't live any longer. But yet we have all this evidence of people going through some of these stressors that we talked about living longer. So yeah, they're resistant to it. It's coming around because there's tremendous amount of research. Just Google hormesis and Hormesis, hormesis. And you will find all the anti-aging discussions, all the anti-radiation discussions, health benefits, all of it. It's out there. So like everything, it's just taking time.
Do you envision hormesis clinics? You go in deliberately to get some kind of stressor?
Oh, man, there's so many places I could go with that. I am not going to go there at all. You're not sucking me into that one.
Brought to you by Hormesis. Visit your local location. Right?
Yeah, I am not worthy.
Yeah.
I am not.
Yeah, right.
No, that's not what we're talking about.
You could make money on both sides of it, because you could have someone who likes to inflict pain and someone who's looking for the stressor to come in, right?
This whole conversation just deteriorated.
I'm going on Shark Tank. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah. What's your product? Yeah. Get over here. Give me 20.
Yeah. I think there's places like that already, but I'm not going to go there.
There we go. Back on hormesis.
Yes.
Woo! So, where do we go with hormesis? Well, it's a concept. That's what we're saying. It's a concept, and it's a concept that actually I think needs some thought. It could affect your mindset in the practice of chiropractic, in that at least we know that maybe the x-ray isn't as bad as what we thought it was. But as far as our patients, you have to do your own background research, decide how many times, what kinds of things you might recommend, and how many times you might say to somebody, oh, don't eat this, don't eat that, do this kind of exercise or don't do that kind of exercise. Those are your own personal choices. But what we're saying is this is real, and there's a lot of research out there, and maybe spend a little time figuring out where it is in your own head.
I wish they would do more research on this, especially with the X-ray part of it, because boy, wouldn't that be? I mean, you think about the diagnostics that are out there and how complex they are, but the amount of radiation that they deliver.
Oh my God, yeah.
And whether or not all of it really is that bad. I mean, I suppose if you're getting that diagnostic, you're not in good shape in some way anyway. But
well, there's a lot of things that change. More recently, when it comes to the field of radiation, they just now don't recommend using gonad shielding.
Wow. So
because it traps the soft rays right at the spots you don't want it trapped.
So
that's a big turnaround.
But radiation control programs have not caught up with that, because you still need to have your shielding and test the integrity of them.
Actually, I did have a friend of mine who went to a hospital for radiation, and the radiology tech said, no, we're not going to use shielding, because he asked for it. He said, no, we don't use shielding anymore. So it is disseminating out there slowly.
He just didn't feel like go get it, or?
Yeah, he walked out of there and said, just don't have kids for the next 2 years.
But he didn't stay in the room when he pushed the button, did he?
Yeah. Yeah, if hormesis was true, wouldn't we all want to be in the room with him?
Yeah, right. I suppose if you're doing that every day, probably not. But that's interesting, because boy, I wish they would do. I'm sure they are doing more research, especially the anti-aging. The market itself is going to force that.
So if you Google hormesis and aging, there'll be tons of articles about it, supporting it, talking about different things that they find. They actually say it extends the telomeres, which are supposed to be, the part of our chromosomes that determine our longevity. So as we get further down the road with this stuff, I think there may be protocols that come out of it. Like you said, hormesis centers or whatever.
I'm telling you right now, that's going to be a moneymaker.
Yeah. When you see Paul on
Shouldn't
Shark
have said
Tank,
anything.
he's going to show up in his leather and whips and chains.
Yeah. Whatever it takes.
Okay.
Oh, that's funny.
Yes.
So, I mean, as of right now, though, we can't say that X-ray is going to have this health benefit by having an X-ray, right? I mean,
No.
The diagnostic is the benefit. We'll stick with that.
Right.
Knowing that there could be some signs of positive versus all negative on the exposure, I suppose.
Exactly. We're there enough to at least put our minds at ease that we were already in a place where the benefit outweighs the risk. Now we can at least have some comfort in knowing that which does not kill us makes us stronger.
Oh, I've heard that before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very interesting. So
Yes.
I guess that'll be our members' moment too, is don't tell your patients that X-ray radiation is just good for you.
Yeah, don't go that far yet.
Yeah.
Don't go that far. Don't worry about it. This is all good.
Yeah, right.
No, not that way. But you can definitely have comfort in saying that in your mind, knowing that the risks are less than what they were not that long ago.
Yeah. All right. Well, on those words of wisdom, thank you again for joining us for another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
And I'm Dr. Mark Davini. Please live long and prosper.
Good one.
Thanks for listening to All Things Chiropractic. We'd love to hear from you. Visit allthingschiropractic.com with comments, episode ideas, or questions. Or connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at All Things Chiropractic Podcast. Be sure to join Dr. Mark Davini and Paul Andrews next time for another episode of All Things Chiropractic.